Hello everybody, welcome back. Let's have a look at some of these coins then, shall we? Because it's still, this bull movement is still looking pretty good, but I do anticipate a pullback any minute now across the board for all the top cap coins, including Bitcoin of course, but that pullback should only really be a decent sized temporary stop correction, and it could happen any minute now, but I'm kind of expecting it to happen this evening, or well, within the next 24 hours. I know we're heading into the weekend, but I'm expecting this pullback to kick in. But I don't think it's going to be too violent. So we'll look at Bitcoin and we'll work out where our stops are and what impact that could have on some of these other coins, like Ethereum, for instance, which looks like it does want to have a pretty, perhaps maybe a bit more of a sizable pullback than others, which is a shame because I love Ethereum and all my money's in Ethereum. So Bitcoin, as we are speaking now, we are pulling back a little bit. But if we were to have this a drop in price, it's not going to come any further down than this level here. Basically 9,474. You could find a wick down to that level, maybe even the bottom level of this. And this is the 9 EMA, which is 9,437. A wick could come down to test that area, but I'm sure it'll be bought right back up. So basically, it's not going to have the momentum to carry on a downtrend after this. I'd be very surprised if it did. Then after that, and it would the RSI isn't as high as everybody expects it thinks it is. It's high, it's definitely high, but it's been higher in the past and continued to make big moves over, I guess, prolonged periods of time. You can see after this long period of accumulation, we popped right up, went up over $1,000. That was about 35% move, I think, in almost a day. And then we came back down while more or less still continuing up. And continue to basically break way above the RSI. These moves were absolutely enormous and phenomenal, and then did cause a giant correction. All I'm saying is that yes, we are punching the top of here. This is very bullish, and we haven't really exploded above it, which is what I am expecting to see. So this small pullback that I'm referring to, that's on the cards, is only going to be very small. The spike to the up after that will be enormous. That is confirmed by, to me, the golden cross on the exponentials, the golden cross on the simples, the perfect, well, it's not perfect, but it's looking pretty good spread, almost completely perfectly bullish spread here. The only thing we need to get here is this 50 above this 200, and that is just so you can tick a few boxes to say yes, it's looking very good now, almost like a perfect rainbow. But with or without that, it doesn't really matter. This is a good situation that we're in right now, and any pullback now, especially a pullback down to this level, 9,500 or so, it needs to be bought up. That's all I'm saying. But I'm not a financial advisor, so this isn't financial advice. The same thing would be going for our friend over here, Ethereum, apart from the fact that Ethereum has already burst out of its RSI pattern, and it's looking quite overextended for what it's worth. It's made significant and continuous gains over this last, well, I mean, how long has this been now? Over this last month, really. So one of the main reasons I'm a big holder of Ethereum, I do expect it to get higher over time, but this pullback that we're anticipating now could bring us down to as much as $200 or just lower perhaps. But that would be, but again, bought up quite quickly, I imagine. This chart is not in the same way that Bitcoin looks bullish with the golden crosses. We don't have those golden crosses yet. We are likely to be getting them soon, but we don't have them quite yet. So to be as bullish as everybody is on Ethereum without this golden cross in play, basically is saying to me that yes, a pullback will be very, very, very happily bought up by many, many people, because the next move will probably be very big. I'm expecting over the next couple of months to see Ethereum of probably around its last its most recent all-time high. We're talking $300 to maybe $340 in the next couple of months. I mean, that obviously could be completely wrong, but given the way that it's moving at the moment, given the strength of it compared to Bitcoin, given the fact that the market is about to turn a corner and really start to pump, and that we've not had our most bullish indicators kick in as yet, and that this has been slow and steady away, even though it's been pretty phenomenal, I think $300 to $340 isn't too out of the realms of possibility, and then at that point we're going to be more or less talking new highs. We could really be talking about phenomenal growth with Ethereum, which is why I like to hold this guy at the moment. I do trade on margin trades, but at the moment I don't really have the time to do those sort of things. So I a while ago, and those who join my Telegram group know this, I invested the vast majority of my money into Ethereum because I just saw the chart as being one of those pretty much guaranteed decent returns back in comparison to Bitcoin. So obviously, if you want to do a safe bet, you buy your Bitcoin. If you want to do a slightly riskier bet, then you would go onto an altcoin. But I saw that Ethereum, to me, seemed as safe as Bitcoin with bigger gains. And I'm not massively greedy, so I'm not throwing all my money into these small cap coins or whatever, on the off chance that they will moon. I'm putting my money where the safety and security is, and the liquidity as well, which is why I chose Ethereum over all that. And a few others, obviously. I mean, there's Binance coin, which also has that for me. It feels relatively secure and good returns over Bitcoin. And then I have a wild card, which is what we're looking at now, which is Matic. Matic isn't exactly a wild card, but it's a lot riskier than other assets. However, saying that, it's got a very good looking chart and an interesting chart in comparison to the other alts, which more or less look the same, the top cap alts. So the difference is, when we're looking at Matic, we're looking at a coin that likes to have very sizable gains. We're looking at a coin that's already broken through its most significant resistance at this lower levels of 2 cent and stayed above there, tested it and bounced and continued, which is great. We are looking at a coin with a MACD of a prolonged period of accumulation, which is not for very long been in bullish territory. Now it's well within bullish territory, but it's still got plenty of room to move, which I believe it's likely to do very big moves soon. We had a golden cross all the way back here, which played out in this run here, and then completely, spectacularly died a death. We haven't had a death cross, which means that technically this golden cross is still playing out, similar to the way that Link has survived without having a death cross. And it meandered within a certain range, had certain pumps and dumps, but it never really died, which is kind of what we can say with Matic. Matic definitely committed suicide here, however it avoided technically to trigger like a bearish domino effect, which would be to at that point begin to make lower lows, and it didn't do that. It double bottomed here on this bounce, and it's continued to go up ever so slightly but surely, and creating what we would call technically as an accumulation zone. And this accumulation zone has been going on for a relatively good amount of time. We'll measure it from here just to be modest. So it's been going on for 37 days, which is a decent amount of time, ready for it to start making its moves up again. It's over this last week has been making decent moves. We're going to get to the magic number, which is the 2.7 cent margin, where we were basically held down these levels here. Breaking above there is basically what happened here, and we had that big spike up again. I would expect to see something similar to that when we get above this level. Not just because it was a historical area of resistance, but also the top of the Ichimoku cloud is going to remain at that exact figure for the next 2.5 weeks. So Matic's looking pretty strong to me, and definitely a good diversifier for your portfolio. It will pump on its own accord, and it kind of is trending with the market too. but it also wants to do its own thing. Volume's relatively high on this coin now. It's not the baby that it used to be. It's edging its way closer and closer to becoming one of the top cap coins, which I'm sure within this next year it's likely to be one of the top cap coins. Again, for me, it's a great diversifier for the portfolio, especially at this level. However, I am going to be very careful with it. Given the way that it pumps and dumps, I'm going to be very careful at certain resistances. First resistance I'll be careful at will be the 2.7 cent area, and then clearly after that I need to be looking at this level here, the 3.5 cent area, which I would expect to be a resistance. We found resistance here before this last jump up, and then actually on that way down, on that significant candle down, which was not, I mean, it's 2 daily wicks here, but two daily candles here, but it was less than that in time. It was I'm not entirely sure, but I was asleep at the time, but I think this took place in just in a couple of hours. So first test on the way down did find a temporary support at 3.5, but when that broke, it was horrendous. It was tragic. So 3.5 cent also a significant resistance for Matic, and also an area where I'll be starting to be very careful about what's going on with it. Next we're going to look at one. So how many one definitely looks to me like it wants to do its own thing at this point now. We've broken out the Ichimoku cloud, which is great, and we're making our way to test the 200 simple moving average. We're above all other major moving averages, and we're quite a way off here from the getting our way to the 200 EMA, because this coin has been bearish for so long. It's come down massively, so it's basically been the chart has looked pretty bad for this coin since its inception. However, it's looking pretty good now. Let's have a look at some of these other indicators. So RSI is overextended, that's okay. Volume's picked up dramatically, which is great. Technically, you could argue that this is still accumulation, it's not yet peaked. I think that the next level of resistance is going to be around about this level here, around about the 673 area, roughly speaking. They have a bit of a pullback from there, maybe find a bounce at the top of this itchy cloud, and then continue, and eventually make our way up to this guy here. So we're going to be looking to test and break the 841. Once that's done, I mean, there's no real end to this. That breaking above there is likely to form a really good pattern of continuation, but again, we are relatively overextended on the RSI, so this coin would benefit from a pullback, as would all the other coins. So I can see some of these alts and Bitcoin are coming down now, as I kind of thought they were likely to. XRP, one of those coins that really desperately wants to have a pullback, quite a way off from having our golden cross on this guy. RSI is coming back down nicely, so again, this is something that we need to see. We're really anticipating to see this kind of thing. We need to have a pullback across the board for us to have continuation, so don't panic, it's kind of normal, this is what we want. So XRP could come down to test these levels, and if anything, I would like to see it test around 26 cent. Wicks below there would be fine, but again, probably get bought back up. XRP is a difficult one often to trade after big pumps like this, because it could continue up, no problem, but if it breaks down, I wouldn't say there's no end to it, but it might begin to show signs of ultimate weakness like it did in the past. But I don't really think that that's the case. I think XRP is one of the leaders in this alt run. And I think it will continue, but again, we need the pullback to happen, and then let's buy those pullbacks. And finally on my list is Chainlink, which has made a giant move today, breaking these highs, which is great. What we want to see is us close around above these highs, so anywhere above this last tippy top wick there, which will be $3.16. Closing above there is going to be very bullish for it. We will then at that point begin to make our way up to basically breaking these highs here. First set of resistance, $3.75, where these candle bodies ended. They are historically the biggest candle bodies in Chainlink's history. Yes, there was a giant wick, but I don't really like to count the wick. The wick will become a resistance in its own right and probably be front run way before there. I would say that the proper resistance is going to be $3.74, $3.75, and then if you're probably going to find big pullbacks getting closer to these wicks. So I'd be very careful about buying anything around these levels. So finding that bounce already, but I think the inevitable needs to happen on these guys. We need to have pullbacks across the board. Some of these coins, again, like I say, are diversifiers, so they work differently. They all are going to benefit from a pullback because the next big move will be very, very big across the board. So this next pullback is needed for everything to then continue to make those big moves. And when I'm talking about big moves, I'm talking about really big moves. I think Bitcoin is likely to test up towards the $11,000 area. We'll find resistances around this area, of course, because this is where our giant wick was sort of held back at. This is also where all these wicks and candle bodies kind of amalgamated around these levels. So mid 10,000s, 10,500 towards 11,000 would probably be my next target. Again, getting worried for people front running me, so I would always aim to be careful and cautious where I'd be looking to sell my margin trades. Just let me get it clear though, margin trading is different. That's where supports and resistance for me are key. Unless you're talking about something like Matic, which is pretty deadly when it goes wrong. But generally speaking, I think it would be safe to say, reasonable to say that the market has picked up at this point, and golden crosses are looming across the board for the majority of the top cap alts, which would suggest that big pumps are going to happen with those alts, which means that the alts compared to Bitcoin will pump, which means that Bitcoin dominance is likely to go down, which means that technically these alts are all going to see significant gains over the next 2 to 3 months before Bitcoin decides that it's going to take the lead again, which is what I would expect to see, like we saw last year. So I think at the moment, it would be hard to not make money with cryptocurrency, given enough time. I'm not saying buy an alt today and be rich tomorrow. I'm just saying the market appears that it's going to be picking up at this point now. We have our golden crosses on Bitcoin, which is the signifier of the overall sentiment within the market, and then after that we're going to get golden crosses across the board with the vast majority of top cap alts. The entire market is going to start to thrive and boom again this year. My biggest fear, however, is that it will thrive and boom too big too soon and fizzle out again, and we'll spend another 6 to 8 months in a downtrend because everybody's over leveraged longs caused too much of a move. Anyway, it was just a short and quick video because you can tell probably by the speed of my talking that I'm completely burned out for the day, and I need to get some rest. But thank you for watching. Join my Telegram group if you want to connect with me and some other really knowledgeable people that lurk around in the depths of that chat. And I hope you have a good weekend, and hopefully we'll make some more videos tomorrow for you. Take it easy.